I want to talk about predator prevention for chickens and ducks. And this can also include, like, we have baby lambs, baby goats. It can be around small livestock. But I've had this question multiple times. I've tried answering it in other videos. I'm going to go over it again. We've had the question online through YouTube, but we also get the questions like at the farmer's market when I explain how we raise our chickens, because we're selling eggs, amongst other things. When people ask, they're like, how do you keep your chickens, how do you keep them alive? And I tell them, like, look, we're rotationally grazing them out in the pasture. They follow our cattle and our sheep and our goats. They're a couple days behind, and they're out in the open. They don't understand how our chickens stay alive. So let me give you a couple pointers that's worked well for us. And then secondly, as far as losing chickens on our property, I can only recall one event, kind of our fault. And that was because our electric netting, we use Premier One electric netting. We had put it in and it was on rocky soil. When we stepped it in, it didn't step in very well. And we had a really heavy wind, really heavy storm come through. And what happened was, I'm going to turn it around here. If you don't step these in really well, or say they're on rocky ground and you get a couple in a row like that, a wind is strong enough, it'll blow these right over. So what had happened is we didn't check it after that storm. And when we went out the following morning, we had like 3 or 4 in a row, all just laying on the ground. Well, that invited intruders in. We were in an area, I'm guessing it was a raccoon. I think we lost like 7 or 8 chickens and a duck or 2 that night. But that's the only time I can recall really losing chickens. Now we have enough numbers that, like, if we lost 1 or 2, we're probably not going to notice right away. But I've talked to other people who have lost multiple, like they've lost their entire flock, like in a night or 2. So let me give you a few tips. Tip number 1, if you're trying to rotationally graze chickens and ducks or other small livestock and you want to keep them protected, get yourself a good charger. Our fence charger, and you don't have to go with this one, but we've had it for a while. This is Premier One Solar Stop 240. It works great. Love it. It's very powerful. It takes 2 grounding rods and then connects to the fence. Currently, we have about 1,300 or 1,400 feet of electric netting. Now, one tip on that tip is, see in the back there, we had come from back there. If there's fences that aren't being used that are still in the back and need to move forward, try to make sure you disconnect them. Make sure that they're not touching this fence. Take off as many fences as possible so they're not touching, so you're not getting, so it's not having to draw so much power. So instead of, say, 1,300 feet, maybe we could cut it down to 600 or 700 feet, something like that. So when you can, minimize how many fences are on this. But this charger has been a workhorse for us. It works great. We prefer the solar energizer, and we got some other smaller units that are backups. On cloudy days or multiple cloudy days, this typically happens in the winter here in Kentucky, we can swap it out. Say this one's running low, we take it up to the house or to the barn, plug it into the wall, let it charge up, and we bring down one of our smaller units. That works just fine. I think Polyface Farms, I think Joel Salatin, they may have changed it up. They're probably always changing things. But I know at one point they were using, I believe, marine batteries. So I forget what the rationale was for that. Something about how the voltage or something works with the marine batteries or the amperage. But that's what they preferred to use. And I know others that use batteries, and they have really good success with that. But we like the solar chargers. We've been buying them through Premier One for multiple years now. I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, so tip 1 on predator proofing your area is a good fence charger, and I prefer electric netting for the chickens. Okay, if we're talking goats and lambs, I really prefer polywire on reels, but for the chickens that doesn't work. Okay, you got to have something else. And there's a whole bunch of different brands. Let me see, this one here, if it'll go in focus, Poultry Net 12/42/3, and I think those are, for chickens, they work pretty well. They're also lighter, and I think they're the ones that are like 170 foot long or 160 foot long. All the others we have are 100 foot long, but instead of being 42 inches tall, they're 48 inches tall, and they have heavier posts. They're more sturdy. These are our lightest weight, most flexible, but they're almost, they're 160 foot versus 100 feet. We do like using them as our perimeter, and this even works for the cattle. Although our cattle are shorter stature, they're Dexters, so they're not super tall. They respect this. Partially they respect it because they get moved so frequently. They really don't go hungry. They're constantly moved on to, this. Tip number 2 to predator proofing everything, and they're in the background. I don't know if you can see them behind me right now. I'm gonna turn around here. You got Duke, our big lab Great Pyrenees mix, and Dixie, our Great Pyrenees Anatolian Shepherd mix. They do a terrific job. Not only do they, now I'll preface it with, I kind of wish we had Dixie's behavior, the Great Pyrenees Anatolian Shepherd. Eventually, I wouldn't mind if she had some pups and we put 1 or 2 of the pups full-time in with the chickens and 1 or 2 full-time in with the sheep and the goats. That would be my preference. I really like her temperament, especially now that she's kind of growing out of the puppy stage. I've mentioned this in other videos before, but they do a phenomenal job of not only keeping at bay like the raccoons, skunks, possum, foxes. You see that tree line back behind me? That's a creek. That's a creek bottom. There's I don't know, what is it, a den of foxes or a family of foxes? There's been foxes down there every year. I haven't noticed them yet this year, but they're almost always around. So we always have foxes in the area. And then I have seen those dogs go after coyotes. And the coyotes don't mess with them. So tip number 2 is have some sort of livestock guardian dog. Or it doesn't even have to be a dog. We were touring, and I've mentioned a lot, we draw a lot of our inspiration from Polyface Farms with Joel Salatin. We've been out there. I had something on my face. We've been out there a couple times, and they don't have dogs on their property because of all the people that are able to tour the farm and go out there. They have guard geese. Now, I will say the guard geese scared me more than dogs. You see one of the workers go in to collect eggs, and the geese, they're aggressive. So guard geese will work. The one my wife wants, that I'm still kind of surprised I've kept her at bay from this one, is she wants a just-in-case donkey. So she wants a donkey just in case we need a guardian, a livestock guardian animal. She calls it a just-in-case donkey. Although I'm kind of against the big donkeys, but I tell you what, I saw some friends of ours have got a miniature donkey, or a smaller donkey. Sucker's adorable, and if it were me, I would call it Donkey, just like Shrek. Okay, but I'll digress on that. So get yourself something to protect the animals: a dog, a guard geese, a donkey. And I didn't even know until a couple years ago that donkeys were good at that, but apparently they are. I've heard that from multiple sources. They're excellent at being a protector to your livestock or to your herd. Yeah, I didn't realize that. But so get something to protect them. That's number 2. So you got the fence with the charger, whatever setup you want to go with there. Number 2, I highly recommend something that guardian livestock animal of some sort. They really are so important. You know, in the middle of the night, you'll hear the dogs barking. I've looked out here before, flashlights, and I've seen, you know, eyeballs out in the field, and it's probably a fox or something like that, given what we typically see. Now there is one, aerial predators. Haven't talked about that. Our dogs also, you'll see them barking and running. You'll see a hawk flying overhead. Dogs will run it off. And the roosters let all the chickens know. And I'll show you what they do. So if they see an aerial predator, and here they can see for a long way. So if they see a hawk coming from a long way away, all the roosters will gather up the hens and they will all hightail it to underneath that wagon. You see it probably once every other day or something like that. I have yet, and I've spent a lot of time out here, and I've spent a lot of time in the house right next to where, you know, looking out the window where my office is, and I have never seen an aerial predator get any of our livestock yet. It may happen. You know, I do have people that say, well, you got to have your chickens in a run that's covered, you know, the whole thing. It's like a fortress. You don't necessarily have to have that, but we do have multiple roosters. Because we hatch our own eggs, we get a high amount of roosters. We get them up to, you know, 6, 8 months old, a year old, and then we tend to sell them, but we always have a bunch of roosters. So aerial predators haven't been an issue here. Now, I'm curious, we've been seeing them now for a couple years. There are 2 bald eagles that I know of that are about 3 miles south of us, and they're there pretty consistently. They follow a larger creek is what I've heard, but I have yet to see those bald eagles flying over here. If and when that happens, I will be a bit nervous, especially during lambing season and with baby goats. But I have yet to see. The bald eagles are close. They're, like I said, they're within a couple miles of us, but I have never seen one flying over here. Never seen one anywhere over here. The 3 or 4 miles away is the closest I've ever seen them. So bald eagles are beautiful. Love them. I love looking at them when they're close to a road, so we were able to see them a bunch. But so far they've left our farm alone. We'll see if that continues. Also, one other thing I want to mention about our chickens. You see the little red hen house behind us. See the door? Let me make sure you can see it. See the door? We don't ever close that. Ever. The only time that's closed is when we got to hook up to the hitch. We close it. We pull the little red hen house forward, and then we reopen it up and set it up. So at nighttime, I do not try to get all of them to go in there. It's just not something we do, and we have not had issues with it. Knock on wood, maybe we're just lucky, but we've been doing it this method for 4 years. And the method that we had before, even though it wasn't this design, we still didn't close it up at night. I did, when we initially started doing this, I did think that I was going to get one of those solar, you know, the automatic doors that you can time to go up and down and lock them in. I did think about doing that, but we haven't needed to go that route. So they are out. They're free to get in and out of their shelter anytime they want. I will say a lot of them, and I've talked about before, a lot of them perch up on the wagon chassis underneath the whole thing. You know, like they like it under there, or they perch on the tongue of the wagon. That's just kind of what they like to do, but we don't lock them up at night. So we lock the, we close the nesting boxes to try to keep them out of the nesting boxes at night, but we don't lock them. We don't lock them up. So that's most of that's the tips I've got. That's what's worked for us. As you can see, and we've been doing it like this for a while now. Electric netting with a good charger. Okay, the 42-inch works well. They can jump and fly over the 48-inch if they want, but it's something about, I've heard it explained before. It's something about the colors that are like weaved in the way the chicken views this. It kind of throws off their senses, and they don't tend to try to jump over it. Something to that effect. They can. We see it occasionally, but it's not something that they normally do. They don't normally jump over these fences, even though they can. So, good fence, good charger, and some sort of livestock guardian protectors. And then I guess the other thing kind of goes without saying is check on them. We always check on them morning and evening, and sometimes more than that. But just make sure you're checking on them, and you should be good. It's really all the tips. You don't have to worry about these big enclosures. These are I would classify these as free range. We give them very large paddocks that they're able to move on to, and 2 or 3 days of being at that paddock, they're moved to another very large paddock. The chickens have tons of room here. I consider these free range, but we don't do free range in the point where they're just able to get up and walk around the property anywhere they want. They're on our back porch, stuff like that. That every scenario I've ever heard eventually comes back to bite you. Your guardian dogs won't be able to contain them in, and you will likely lose your flock over time. So, very large paddocks, fence netting, good charger, and guardian dogs or guardian animal of some sort, and you should be good to go. Let me know in the comments if you got any questions, or if there's anything else you can think of that works well, or if you disagree with me. You know, like I said, this has worked for us for a number of years, but we're constantly learning and trying to figure things out ourselves. Like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Talk to you later. Bye.